So let me give you an overview of the U-boat. I've just finished renovating it and it looks now terrific, I think. But I've got a number of videos on the site about this boat and I thought I should give you an overview of where they all fit. I began this boat about 10 years ago and I built it by using a foam plug, painting it with acrylic paint, then fiberglassing it. And once I got a nice structure, I just tucked it away. I also made the piston around about that time and then I left it for 3 or 4 years. And then eventually I got it out. And what I did was cut it down the middle using a circular saw, used petrol on the foam to get rid of the foam. Nice idea, but I've got to say, it's whenever you look on the inside of this boat, it's always messy, and that's the reason. I don't think I'll use that method again. And then I started constructing this boat, and I started using some pretty way out ideas. To start off with, I've got a ballast system in here that you don't find many other places, where you've got a central pump in, pump out tank, a piston that runs inside the tank, and then 2 trim tanks. Pretty ambitious. It actually works extraordinarily well now that I've got it running properly. I also built it so that it had dual control props. It had a gun that had an angle and it would actually squirt water. It was pretty exciting. Never worked very well. And then gradually, when I started finishing the boat, cladding it with aluminium flashing, putting all the rivets in, putting everything together, quite a complex process. When I started testing it and getting it running, I found I had all sorts of issues and problems to overcome, which I overcame. So there's about 50 videos on the site on that whole process from woe to go. And at the end of the process, what you have is a boat that operates very nicely. Then, 2 years ago, something new happened. I discovered Arduino, and I realized that if I programmed a chip and put it in here, I could automate the diving process, the surfacing process, and the depth keeping process. So I figured it was time for a revamp. So I've got about 15-16 videos on the website called Arduino on the Submarine, and that describes how I put an Arduino unit inside the boat and made all of those things happen. In the process, I've now just got one speed controller, I've got this, and a few other things have changed. But Arduino is magic. It makes those 3 systems, which are quite complicated, actually work exceptionally well. So I was very happy with that. I'm sailing the boat all the time, really enjoying it, getting it run over, getting problems. Because it's made of aluminium flashing, it tends to be a little bit delicate, and it was getting belted around. So I figured very recently that I would give it a revamp. So now it's had a repaint. Everything's been aligned, it's been re-rigged. This bow slots here have been redone to make them parallel because they weren't before. It's got a brand new little gun sitting there which doesn't squirt water, it's just there for effect. And honestly, it's looking really good. So I've got 4 videos on revamping, renovating, rejuvenating the boat also on there. So you'll see all of that. And that's the story of the U-boat. Now, I've built the Nautilus that you've seen, which is another submarine, obviously, and everything that I've learned out of here I just transferred into that. And because I had more space inside the Nautilus, I was able to do a lot of things I think probably better. So the batteries are all inside the watertight containers, as are most of the servos. But in this boat, it's interesting, the batteries are in the water. I've got a servo in the bow and 2 in the stern that are actually also in the water. That's a little bit of a no-no, but in fact it works fine. I've got a couple of waterproof connectors in there that are really cheap and they work extraordinarily well. So there's a few things about this that are a bit different. I've translated it into the Nautilus and it works a dream, and this is just fantastic. And I've got to say, I really like it.